maybe Capella. Capella, do you have any thoughts along the lines of SDGs and technology?
You echo just a tiny bit. Repeat that question, please.
Do you have any insights as to how you are entertaining SBIs around technology in your work?
Actually, we were just talking yesterday, Capella, about your developing curriculum for University of Michigan, and that's something interesting around virtual learning and how are we're not really experiencing that in K through 12 environments yet, but we know that kids, anytime we ever engage them with technology, they're all over it. They want to tinker, they want to learn, they want to develop and produce. Could you maybe talk about how you work and what you're in Grows Up Now developing curriculum, and how that project-based learning is an essential skill in the world right now around creativity and curiosity that you're so passionate about on your podcast?
Mm-hmm. My ideas on this hasn't changed. I think that people have to know that we care about them in order to learn. So before I have any talk, before I teach any class, before I do any coaching session, I've got to make sure that people know that I care about them, that I think that they matter, that I trust them, that I am out for the best interest. And then I think once an instructor or anyone can introduce these ideas and make people feel like they matter, then learning can commence. And I especially love, obviously the STEAM work that you guys are doing, and the work around curiosity. As you know, Monica, pretty much my whole life with my father has been fighting the current system and the injustice and the inequities that exist. And my father was an extremely empathetic, compassionate man who could connect with anyone, and it was because of those skills. So, to answer your question, this idea of digital learning, and I mean, any learning I think can occur best when you know that the person is really there for you. And that's mostly what I can say. And I find it so interesting that leaders or CEOs or teachers or professors or deans, they can do everything they need to do to climb to the tippy top of their game, but they can't climb over the bridge of compassion or empathy or making people feel like they matter and they're cared for.
Wow.
Yeah, well said. The thing I think that most of us are really interested in is the way in which we go about that learning exercise. It's a lot different digitally than it is when you're face to face, because you have to engage the mind as opposed to engage the room. And I'm wondering, how we go about fashioning, some of the elements of engagement from a digital sense, like project-based learning, design thinking, all of those attributes that give digital an advantage, but on the other hand, you have to overcome the fact that you're remote. And what we've discussed and what we've looked at have been the aspects of allowing the student to be the focus of the project and allow them to design their own solution with some guidance, but basically let it be a product of the student's imagination rather than what we think is right for them. And that's met, I think, with significant excitement on behalf of the other people that we worked with in the past. And I think remote learning, we were doing remote learning before remote learning, but I think young people have resonated with that process to the point where we're thinking a platform way of going about making it available to them that would be run by them, for them, with them. Do you have any thoughts along those lines as a producer and director and developer?
Mm-hmm. So just to make sure I understand the question, I'm sorry, there's a tiny bit of echo. I can hear Monica a tiny bit better. Monica, can you just restate that last part of the question?
When we're thinking about project-based learning as a producer, how might we transfer those skills of carrying into the classroom where we know that it's not happening right now. It's all stick and get, and it's deeply inhuman. What do you think about that as a field that's opening as a new market opportunity? That this entire thing needs to be reinvented, and the skills that you facilitate on set with people, that's real learning. So what do you think about that as a producer?
I suspect that the film industry isn't much different than other industries. I've heard similar stories from the financial industry, from education, definitely from medicine. This sort of idea of winner takes all, zero-sum game. And there's a saying, I'm going to spend the next 10 years to nudge culture, right? Because culture takes a long time to nudge. But I do work to change climates on sets. And I do that starting just with training. I mean, you guys probably know the experiment, the Hawthorne effect, by just the mere act of coming in and asking people, how are they doing? That ups their enthusiasm. So usually just the initiation of paying attention to somebody, assessing somebody, learning someone's name. And one thing I teach to some MBA students that I talk to is small talk. And a good way to do conversation is when someone tells you their name, ask them the story behind their name. Like, that's a good way to break any ice. But, there are ways, obviously, that if you're doing live Zoom learning or live Zoom facilitating, that is, those are much easier processes. And there's a lot of little fun things, that you can do to engage your audience and make sure they stay with you for the entire session. The other thing is when it's pre-recorded. So pre-recorded can be a little bit harder, but you could introduce little positive interventions. And we might start the session with a positive intervention of write down the best 3 things that happened to you today. And that, sort of act of gratitude immediately sets off a better attitude for the session. So that's something that you can do if you're not live. You can give them sort of these little interventions in 3 or 5 minutes to do them. And that is shown in research over and over again to have a considerably positive affect over the control group, which they would just be told to write down 3 things that you did today, opposed to 3 great things that happened to you today, or 3 great things your coworkers or classmates did to you. So, there are small exercises that, people can do even over recorded sessions when you don't get the opportunity to have that sort of face-to-face. And now I'm saying Zoom is face-to-face too. But on set, to answer your question further, on set, we start with training. We start with we talk empathy training, leadership training. We listen to people's stories. We assess them with DISC and emotional intelligence. And also another one is, and it's free, it's called Values in Action, or VIA. And you can find it on, it's the VIA Institute, VIA Characteristics, I think, .org or something like that. But it's a great test that was, started by Marty Seligman and Chris Peterson for the 24 character strengths that are valued over space and time. So if you go to a tiny village in India in 1880, it'd be valued. You come here in 2023 and, LA would be valued. So there's 24 and they rank them, and your top 5 are your signature strengths, and they are very true, and they help you understand why you are, or who you are, and why you do what you do, for sure.
So
Wow.
storytelling is at the the baseline of engagement.
Well said. Yes.
And bringing that forward, I think, is an important element. How do you advertise or monetize the various elements of your programming, and are you doing that on a universal basis? Because I know you're doing work as well, and it all can't be geared towards education. So how do you find yourself shifting between those positions?
My significant other would love how you think. Yes, this is a great question. What were you going to say, Monica?
I was going to say that yesterday we were talking about how you had a lot of development work going right now. That was connected.
Yes. Gosh. Well, the first thing I'm doing, so to answer your question, obviously I monetize being a film producer. I have my own projects. I do commercials and features, and then I'm also brought on to other people's sets. I say I'm 2 personas, which is appropriate because I'm a Gemini. I have the production whisperer, which is a more preventative persona. When people bring me on from the very beginning, and I'm able to do the appropriate training, assessments, facilitation, from starting from the top, the executive producers and the studio execs, and then once the HODs, the head of departments, are hired, I do them, same thing, assessments, training, and facilitating. And then when the crew and the actors start to be ignited, I do the same thing with them. So if I can be part of the project from the beginning, I can avoid a lot of problems, and I call that the production whisperer. Now, if I'm ever brought on set, or when I'm brought on set in the middle of a project that's in crisis, the director's about to walk, the studio is going to pull funding, the lead actors are at odds, then that's a production wolf. And I say I come in there, you give me 48 hours and I can get everything back on track. I don't know if I'll get everyone loving each other, but I can absolutely get everybody working collectively together to get the film to the finish line. And that's a production wolf. So, I charge for those, consulting and coaching or facilitating and all that. So that's how I monetize it. But you do, probably much like a lawyer, often just get asked to do a lot of stuff. It's just a question, or how would you do this, or how would you handle that, or can you talk to this person? And I often do that for free. And yeah, I get some pushback from, like I said, this significant person in my life that I give away too much for free.
There you go. It's all about engagement, and sometimes you have to move the needle for someone to recognize the value that.
And you love it. You want to see people succeed, and you want to see people do it. It doesn't have to be so painful. People enter this career usually for meaning. They love it, but they stay for mattering. And I think that, that's important. And same thing with medicine, same thing, I suspect, with a lot of organizations. You come in because it's important to you. You want that purpose, and you want to be a part of something bigger. But then you end up staying because you feel like you matter. You add value. You are valued. So that's really the work that I do, to make sure people feel like they matter.
The creator's dilemma.
Wow. We should probably talk this forever.
Well, I'm just going to point out that she's put your sticky over here next to Gen Z and message of climate change, which is a whole new realm of investigation and imagination created there. And I'm sure you're looking about those things as well as we do traditional filming, and the way in which we find ourselves in various locations now that are changed dramatically, or we're in a different location because it's top of the line movies, which is another way of looking at the opportunities that creators can have in an unfolding universe.
Yeah, it's oh, Chico's here.
So who else do we have in the house?
So we have. So I promised you wouldn't be first, Capella, but you just ended up being first.
Well, I wanted to say one thing, if you don't mind, quickly about Gen Z, because that's a hot spot for me. I adore Gen Z, and a lot of the work that I do is, you know, I couldn't believe this when I heard this, because if you would have asked me that how many generations are in the workforce right now, I would say 3, but it's actually 5 that are still in the workforce, and bridging that gap between Gen Z and, I was going to say, the older Gen Xers, but let's not, you know, the boomers and the traditionalists are still in. And so that is a large leap for what the Gen Zers expect. And yeah, their expectations for work-life balance is a lot different than the later Gen Xers and the boomers, for sure. So I adore the Gen Zers. I think they're going to change the world for the better. And I love working with them. I work with them all day long.
I love it.